Here we go.
Live from the Hollywood foothills of North Carolina, welcome to episode 62 of the Confirmed Epic Podcast, the official podcast of theepicreview.com. That's thepicreview.com, and proudly presented by the GWW Radio. That's the Geeks Worldwide Radio Network. I, of course, am one of your hosts, the real Brad Bell, and joining me today is the Butch Cassidy to my Sundance Kid, Mr. a.k.a.
Andrew Stokes.
Also known as
Andrew Stokes. I don't know enough about Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid to know whether I came off well in that exchange or not.
You're the lead in that because
cool.
The Sundance Kid is supposed to be the sidekick.
Okay,
from the
cool.
way I understand
I mean, it sounds like the name of a sidekick.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Okay.
So you're the Butch Cassidy to my Sundance Kid. That means you're the lead man. And you are the lead man a little bit today because I'm feeling under the weather just a tad. I touched some black goo on the way over here, and all of a sudden I got like flu-like symptoms.
Okay, black goo bad.
Yeah, black goo's bad.
Doesn't black goo give things life too?
If you're an engineer, a creator, yeah, it does. But if you're a normal peon like us, it just creates infection.
We're derivative beings.
So what I teased is going to be our discussion topic for today. We're going to start the Icons of Cinema Summer Showdown series. And it's going to be a discussion topic that's going to carry us through the summer, and we're going to explain the outline of that when we get to that topic in our main discussion later on. As for now, let's go ahead and get into it, Andrew Stokes. What have you been checking out?
Check checklist? Check. Double check checking of checklist? Check.
So what I've been checking out is kind of sort of relevant, but also
kind of sort of relevant should be the tagline of this podcast.
So I've been checking out Twin Peaks, but not the new Twin Peaks that just started. I'm watching the old Twin Peaks because I've never seen Twin Peaks before. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't, but apparently from what I've heard on the illustrious Slash Filmcast,
not sure what that is,
whose opinion I respect tremendously, Devendra Hardawar and Dave Chin over there said you have to watch the original show to watch the new show.
Yeah, I imagine so. Because I know, kind of famously, it lasted for 2 seasons. I know very little about it. It lasted for 2 seasons, and then it got canceled, and it ended on a big cliffhanger. I don't know what that cliffhanger is, but I know it ended on a big cliffhanger, and it's just one of those kind of infamous things. So I don't know. I guess, and this is picking up in the future, but I'm assuming that the new show is going to cover, resolve that cliffhanger. I would hope. There's a movie too, but it's a prequel supposedly.
I've heard it sucks. I know nothing about Twin Peaks other than it's made by David Lynch, who's kind of an out there showrunner. So tell us about Twin Peaks just a little bit.
It's kind of funny. I something in the pop culture like this, you sometimes find things out about the show or whatever, even though you haven't experienced it. And I actually found out. Ahead of time, I found out about a character that died in the show, and I was kind of like, well, that kind of sucks. I know this character dies, but I started watching the show, and apparently the entire show is because this character died. Like the character is already dead when the show starts. It's like they find this dead body at the beginning of the show, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I didn't really know spoiler, but it was funny kind of going into this, like, well, I can't wait to run into this character because I know they're gonna die. But
it's only like 2.5 seasons, right?
Right, 2 seasons. Two seasons in the movie.
So I guess that's the half.
Right, the first season, one season's pretty short, and the other one, I think the first season's like 8. The first episode's like over an hour and a half, slightly over an hour and a half. And then I think it's like 8 episodes or something. I don't know. But then the second season's pretty long. They're like 40, at least the first season, they're like 40 some odd minute episodes typically.
And this aired on Showtime originally, I think,
believe
which
so,
is
right.
where the new show is picking up on Showtime as well.
It is really weird. I think it's supposed to be supernatural, but like nothing supernatural that I know of has happened yet. But it's really weird. It definitely, you can tell it's like an early 90s show. I described it to someone today, and this is going to sound like an insult. I don't mean it that way, but it's almost like a comedy without jokes. like everybody's just like super quirky, and it's just
Yeah.
like some people are just weird. Some people are there's definitely especially in the first episodes, a little melodramatic. There's some overacting going on in some of these characters. I'm not sure that some of these people knew what to make of this show when they were making it.
I was listening to some people talk about the newer episodes, and they talk about just how quirky David Lynch is. Apparently, in the first or second episode of the new season, there's a 5-minute scene of a guy loading a truck with shovels.
Yeah, I believe
and
it.
not speaking. I'm like, wow, this sounds intense.
There's some weird stuff going on. There's like a few like. I'm not sure how much he had to do. I haven't paid attention to like whether he's like directing some of these episodes or not. But there's definitely some like quick cuts to like a fan, and it's like, is this significant at all, or is this just like an aesthetic thing? I don't know, but it's an interesting show so far. I found it interesting.
# interesting for the
So-
Confirmed Epic podcast.
So I'm enjoying it. I'm interested to see what happens next.
Would you recommend it as a big fan of TV like myself? Is it something that is it worth going back and
I'm not
watching?
that far into it. I would say so far, because I mean, I can kind of see where it's going. Some of the characters are pretty cool. Some of them like over the top. There's this one FBI guy that comes in, not the first one you meet, but a couple episodes in, this FBI guy comes into town. And is
Walter
just
White's brother-in-law.
He's an a-hole to everybody. Like, he's just like crap talking the whole. Like he doesn't even meet these people, and he's like saying downright mean things to their face. I'm like, who is this guy? So some of these characters are a little larger than life so far, but it's cool.
My next show to watch is Leftovers. I watched halfway through the first season and gave up on it, but now everybody, including Evan Truelove, including the guys from Sight and Sound, Ryan Snelling and Jay Williams, are like, it's the best show on TV.
So I didn't give up on it. I was interested in it, and it was one of those instances where it was like we were watching it with the family, and it's like, oh, we can't, so and so's busy this week, let's watch 2 episodes next week. Okay, so and so's busy, let's watch, and it just kind of like came to a point where we just never finished the
And it's
season.
by Damon Lindelof of Prometheus and Lost fame. So
I like Lost, so
I definitely want to watch Leftovers this summer. I think I'm going to pick up like the Blu-rays and watch them. They're like $17 on Amazon, which is pretty good for HBO show.
I started rewatching last night. I started rewatching Community.
Oh, I love that show. God, one of our favorite comedies of all time.
I forgot. I still haven't watched the last final season that was on Yahoo.
It's not up to par. I watched like the first 3 episodes and quit, which is kind of unheard of for a show I love that much.
Yeah, well, that season's on Hulu as well now. So season 6. But yeah, I remember like I watched the show when it was on TV, and I remember, this is it's a good show. It speaks to my nerdy sensibilities. It was a clever show. I enjoyed it. But like rewatching these, I'm like 5 episodes in. I forgot how freaking funny it is. Like laugh out loud funny. So
I mean, just think about who they had on there. You're talking about not just Joel McHale, who's the lead character, but you had Glover, right? Donald Glover, who is this huge breakout star now, who I thought for years was the son of Danny Glover, and he's not.
And there's a joke about that in like episode 1 or 2 where he claims to be the son of Danny Glover.
Which is crazy. And then, of course, you have Chevy Chase, which this is kind of the last really big thing that Chevy Chase has done.
Yeah.
I hope it's not the last. Hopefully he's got more under his belt, but Community is one of my favorite. If I was making a list of top 10 favorite shows, it may crack the top 5. Yeah. I love that show so much. And it was something that we all used to talk about. Kind of our group of friends was into it. You were, Jerry was. So it'd be worth going back and revisiting, I think, at some point. But from one NBC show to another, let's talk about Parenthood.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it, really?
Yeah, I've heard of it, yeah.
I actually, speaking of the Slash Filmcast, love that show.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, right. Jeff Kanata, who's their new 3rd co-host on there, for months and months of him being on the show as Parenthood was on this last season, he was talking about how good it was, how he and his wife bonded over the show, how it made him really think about family. So it was on Netflix. So Abby and I had just finished watching Girls. Okay. Like we binge watched it. I bought all the Blu-rays. She loves that show. She loves Lena Dunham. I know that's a polarizing person. We won't get into that here for time's sake, but we actually did like Girls, even though they're nothing but terrible people in the end. Did you ever watch Girls?
No, I haven't seen it.
I
don't mind shows with terrible people, though. I've seen Vikings, and they're all terrible people. So.
Well, Seinfeld's a show of terrible people, and it's one of the most popular shows ever. But anyway, let's go on to something with not terrible people, which is Parenthood. Now, not a star-studded cast. You have Dax Shepard, who is the husband of Kristen Bell.
Right.
They appear alongside each other in Target commercials at Christmas time quite often. You know the commercials, right?
Yeah.
And then you have Craig T. Nelson, who if you saw him, you would know him. Do you know Craig T. Nelson? He was Coach on the sitcom Coach, which was big around the time Home Improvement was, in its prime. Coach was like the number 2 or 3 show. It was very critically acclaimed. But anyway, it's a show about a big family, kind of a liberal family. They live in Berkeley, California. Obviously, they're liberal.
A liberal California family on TV.
Yeah.
Sounds original so far.
It is. This show is not original at all. Okay?
You say the family is quite modern, actually.
Yeah, modern family. That's another one of my wife's favorite shows. But no, this is my type of show because it's got emotion. It's got heart. I won't say it has stakes because it really doesn't.
Does it have a character with a stick?
No, it doesn't.
That's unfortunate.
Unfortunately, no. I mean, I'm only into the second season of it, but... So Jeff Kanata had been recommending it, so I said, all right, I'm going to give it a shot. So we finished Girls, I put it on, we watched like 2 episodes, and to say we're hooked, we're kind of semi-hooked. You know how you get on some shows and you just have to watch the next one?
Right.
That's not how we feel about Parenthood, but when we just kind of want to wind down, like I'm sure tonight my wife worked, I worked, we'll probably watch an episode of Parenthood before we go to bed.
Sure.
And it's about 4 siblings. This Dax Shepard's the most famous of the 4, and then the girl who was
he's playing himself or a character kind of like himself?
He's kind of like himself. Okay. He really basically plays Dax Shepard. But the other recognizable character is the girl from Gilmore Girls, like the older sister. So I didn't watch Gilmore Girls. I think Lorelai's the younger one. Okay. So I don't know the older one. I got it. Graham. Her name's something Graham. It's Laura Graham, I think is the actress's name. We don't have internet right now, so I'm impressed that I pulled that off the top of my head.
Nor do I have an extensive knowledge of Gilmore Girls.
Or Parenthood, for that matter.
Yeah.
But the family is going through a lot. Like, there's these 4 siblings who are grown now, and they all have kids, but they managed to keep their sense of family together. It's 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and their success kind of varies. You have Dax Shepard's kind of like a playboy type, Yeah. And then you have one that's a lawyer, one that's a bartender, one that works for a small business. So they kind of clash. Mm-hmm. And their son, one of the sons has Asperger's. And just kind of, I don't want to say the problems of a modern family that they had to deal with. But this is more like it almost feels not quite as cheesy as something like a Seventh Heaven. Okay. Did you ever watch Seventh Heaven?
Yeah.
Well, I kind of watched it off and on, but I never really got into it. I mean, it is a step above like one of those old WB, which would now be CW shows. Yeah. But I don't know. It's really, really likable characters. It's just something I care about this family. Mm-hmm. And my wife looks at the box art because you know me, I'm a physical media guy to the bitter end. In my grave, I'll be clinging to my DVDs. But we watched the first 3 episodes, and I realized Abby and I were hooked. I immediately went on Amazon. They had all 6 seasons for $29. Okay. And some of these seasons...
Wow, I didn't know it's been on that long.
Yeah, it was 6 seasons. It's over now. Ended last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, this was a pretty good deal considering some of the seasons are like 20 episodes or something like that. Some of them are shorter, like 10, 13, especially the first season, and I looked ahead some of the later seasons. Mm-hmm. My wife looks ahead at the box art. She's like, oh, they have another kid. I'm like, no, don't do that. I want to be surprised, but I highly recommend Parenthood. It's a good husband-wife show. It's a compromise show. So check out Parenthood. It's on Netflix. You can get the DVDs fairly cheap on Amazon.com.
Netflix it is.
Netflix for you, obviously, because you hate physical media now.
I don't hate it, but I mean,
it's the 21st century.
If it's a movie I really like, I'll buy it on Blu-ray to have it on Blu-ray, even if it's on Netflix or something. But
it was a huge week for Epic News, so let's go ahead and get into that. We're going to start Epic News with some very sad news indeed, and that is Sir Roger Moore, best known for being the Bond who took over for Sean Connery, has died at the age of 89. His Bond was known as being more of a lover than a fighter, and he never actually said the line, "I would like a martini shaken, not stirred." I listened to the interview he did on the Empire Film Podcast. They replayed it kind of in his memory. Yes, of Empire Magazine. That would be correct.
Okay.
And he was talking about how he wanted to separate his Bond from Connery a little bit, that Connery's Bond was a killer.
Yeah.
And some Bonds are killers, some are lovers, some are kind of in between. He described Connery as more of a killer. He described Pierce Brosnan as leaning toward being more of a lover, but kind of riding the fence in the middle.
Yeah.
And he's like, Daniel Craig is just a true killer, which is true. I couldn't agree with him more. I've not seen any of the Roger Moore Bond movies, so I don't want to sit here and kind of talk about something that I'm not really familiar with or do not know. It'd be good to have Barbecue 17 on here right now because he's a huge Bond fan, but rest in peace, and we will have a martini shaken, not stirred, in your honor. Okay, let's go ahead and get on to some happier Epic News, or is it happier? It's happier than death, that's for sure, but it has to do with Sony and Spider-Man. So I don't know how happy that can ultimately be. Last week on the Confirmed Epic Podcast, episode 61, Ryan Snelling of Sight and Sound and I talked about Tom Hardy playing Venom.
Wait, do you do podcasts without me?
Yeah, episode 61 and 60. You didn't know that?
No, I'm just kidding.
All right, so we talked about that. We kind of broke that down, so you can check that out in episode 61 and find the article on the site, TH Epic Review, if you want to hear my opinion on that. If you want to hear Andrew's opinion, Andrew, Tom Hardy, are you excited to see him play Venom?
Like Tom Hardy? Sure, why not?
He looks like an Eddie Brock more than a Topher Grace does.
Yeah.
All right, so the news broke today that the Silver Sable and Black Cat movie, which had been rumored, has been officially greenlit. There's been a director announced. I don't have that information right in front of me. I know it was the lady who directed The Secret Lives of Bees, and she also directed Love and Basketball. No news on who will play Black Cat, on who will play Silver Sable. I imagine that will be coming down the pipeline shortly. Here's what confused me about this information.
Okay.
This film is releasing in October 2018, is what Sony said in the press release. And currently, Venom, as in the press release last Friday, is slated for October 5th, 2018. So I wrote an article on this today. You can check it out at the website. But here's what I don't understand. You can't get a basic Spider-Man movie, right?
Yeah.
So now you're going to make a Venom movie? Okay, Venom's a big character. He's stood alone in many comic books. Not good comic books, but he's stood alone in comic books.
Right.
Especially in the 1990s. And then you have Silver Sable, who's a more obscure character.
Sure.
And you have Black Cat, who is not as recognizable as, let's say, her counterpart in DC, Catwoman. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And they are releasing that movie, teaming up that duo, the same month as the Venom movie, competing against one another.
Now, you said this is a live-action movie?
Yeah. Both of them are live-action movies.
That doesn't make any sense. I was thinking, well, maybe it's like a follow-up to the Miles Morales animated Spider-Man or something, but...
And the word is that neither one of these movies takes place within the Tom Holland continuity.
Right, yeah, that's what I would assume.
So does it take place within the Andrew Garfield continuity, or is this a continuity where you have Spider-Man villains without Spider-Man being present?
Maybe. I mean, there's the Catwoman movie with Barry.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. Was there references to Batman in that? Or?
I don't know. I saw like 30 minutes of it and turned it off immediately when she started climbing a Ferris wheel. About 30 minutes in. That
sounds
movie,
all right.
That movie is like 7% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is like a terrible movie. No disrespect to Halle Berry. I mean, she was a great star.
I had a friend who loved that movie. Like, he watched it over and over. I said, why? He goes, it's Halle Berry in this Catwoman suit. I'm like, man, just Google it. Like,
yeah,
you don't sit through this entire movie. Just that's all you're getting out of it.
You're a huge Spider-Man fan. He's your favorite hero.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this? Because there's a secondary rumor that says that maybe Garfield's coming back to play Spider-Man in these movies. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, sure, why not? 2 Spider-Man?
This is getting really confusing.
I know, but
Sony can't get one Spider-Man right.
As long as the Tom Holland Spider-Man films are still cool, they can do whatever else they want. They want to have 2 Spider-Man. They're gonna have 2 with Miles Morales.
They're gonna have 3 because you're gonna have Tom Holland, Miles Morales, and then you could have Andrew Garfield.
Right, if Andrew Garfield, that's fine. I almost felt bad for him because I felt like he could have, the movies he were in, they just weren't up to snuff, and I don't really think he was at fault for that. You know what I mean?
He was not the problem. No, but who wants a Silver Sable movie? Black Cat's
Silver Sable
one
fan.
thing.
I feel like Silver Sable has is a comic book fan favorite type person.
She was big in the 90s. She came out of the same era that Venom came out of. I think Todd McFarlane, I don't think he created her, but I know his rendering of Silver Sable is very famous. And it was that same 1995, 1996, 94 era Spider-Man comics. I never liked the character that much. She wasn't a bad character, but it's not like, oh, they definitely need to make a movie for her.
Right, she's just one of those characters I know about that I don't have an opinion of one way or the other. I've seen the ultimate incarnation of her, and that's really all the experience I have with her.
Why don't they just stop and just let Disney, help them cash checks?
I don't know, because it still makes money for them, obviously, or they would. You know what I mean? If this is a big action-y movie, they can release it overseas and still make money.
If a Silver Sable and Black Cat movie makes money, I'll be somewhat surprised.
Well, it depends on who they cast.
Halle Berry,
Silver
Sable, maybe.
Halle Berry's Black Cat.
I don't know who I'd like. I'd like to see Anne Hathaway as Black Cat. I know she was Catwoman, but she was going to be Black Cat in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4. She had been cast in that. I would rather see Spider-Man 4. How about we do that as well? Just give us 3 Spider-Man. Give us a Raimi Spider-Man 4. Give us the Tom Holland movies over here. Give us the animated Spider-Man movies with the Miles Morales. And then give us these Andrew Garfield pigeonholed Spider. Just 4 Spider-Man movies.
I would love it. Even if they're all terrible except for one of them.
You're bound to get 1/4 of something right. It's like a multiple choice test, A, B, C, D.
Heck,
enough. You might get one.
DC is, there's.
You would mark DC.
Do what?
On the multiple choice, you'd mark DC or you're referring to the company.
I'm saying DC is having they have 2 Superman, they have 2 Flash. You know what I mean?
With the TV shows though, and I wouldn't cite DC as a successful example.
No, but I'm saying that's just one company. Here you have Sony; they have their own rights and their own things they want to do, so it almost makes sense. I'm interested to see what it's not something we'll ever see with a deal between Sony and Marvel to get Spider-Man in the MCU and can Sony? They got obviously the whole Miles Morales thing going on. Can they have this other Spider-Man? Is that okay with their contract with MCU?
I have no idea. I know it's been over a decade since we had a good Spider-Man movie. That was 2004 Spider-Man 2.
Wow, that's crazy.
So yeah, exactly. We'll hold our breath. We'll wish Sony the best, but it seems like they're flop after flop. Ghostbusters tanked last year. And not because it was an all-female cast. The cast was not the problem. That was just a terrible movie. Did you ever watch it?
I still haven't seen it. When Jerry didn't jump at the chance to see it, I was like, well, I guess I can wait to see it. You know what I mean?
Jerry has not watched a new Ghostbusters movie.
He still hasn't seen it?
No, because I watched it and I called him and wanted to get his opinion
should still see
on
it.
it.
That's I don't know. It's still kind of weird.
It makes the Michael Bay TMNT movies look like Citizen Kane.
I don't believe that.
It does.
I don't believe that.
It does.
I gotta watch it.
Okay, let's move on to our next piece of epic news, which is going to be more Sony news.
Yay!
More Tom Holland news.
Yay!
Tom Holland, who is apparently the savior of Sony, even though Disney's the only one who's used him right so far, is going to play one of your heroes.
Never heard of him.
Nathan Drake of the Uncharted series. Now, it's Uncharted, right?
Right.
Okay.
Uncharted, the first one's like Drake's Fortune. They're all subtitled, kind of like the Pirates movies. Now, you say he's my hero. I kind of consider him more your thing, because you've played more of the Uncharted games than I have, I think.
I beat the first Uncharted game all the way through.
Okay.
I played a couple hours of the second one. I watched my brother and Evan beat the second one when we were in college.
Yeah.
And then after that, I never finished the second one on my own. I watched the ending with them, and then I never played the third one.
I've only played and beaten the first one. Never played second one or farther.
I guess I was just thinking of Naughty Dog and Last
of
Us.
I'm a huge fan of Naughty
Dog.
Yeah, that's true.
But video game movies in general are usually destined to fail. Sony video game movies, that has to fail, right? What do you think of this casting, and do you think Sony can make a good Uncharted movie?
I don't know.
You have no opinion on the casting of Tom
No, Tom
Holland?
Holland's great because...
Is he really great?
Is
he really a great Nathan Drake?
Well, because they're going with supposedly going with a young Nathan Drake.
You know why? So they can make a gazillion movies and rope this franchise in.
So who cares?
Well,
if it's good, who cares?
Man, they're starting to think. Remember how?
Did you see the last Fast and the Furious movie?
No, I didn't.
Did you see all the other 7? And you're gonna see this 8th one?
Yeah, I've already got the 8th one.
You are
pre-ordered
just a
on.
sucker, just printing money for them. Who cares? I mean, if you enjoy them, you know what I mean. And if people are still paying for them,
They didn't start the Fast series with a plan to let's make sure we get 7 movies. Remember when you and I first started getting?
I'm pretty sure
movies?
once you saw the second one, you realized there was no plan for this franchise.
Yeah,
they made a movie, and there was enough money to make a second movie.
Well,
and then
for so long, the Lone Game was a trilogy, right?
Yeah.
Now it's not. Now it's like a Harry Potter, like 7.5
It's
film
more
franchise or a cinematic universe.
A universe. That's. I mean, you
don't
haven't seen
need-
Kong Skull Island yet, have you?
Oh yeah, I can't wait for that one.
It
I'm
was-
gonna watch it when it comes out.
It was
on
enjoyable.
Blu-ray. But I'm not too excited for this news. I don't want to see a young, like when they said they're casting Spider-Man young, that makes sense to me. All right, we can watch this kid evolve and grow up. We'll get a couple high school movies, maybe a couple college movies. Then when he's an adult, everything that happens to him is going to be that much more, very similar to Daniel Radcliffe and Harry Potter, because you've been with that version, that incarnation of the character for so long. But I don't know, if you tell me you're casting Nathan Drake, and this is somebody who's played one game, I mean, I'm not like the Greg Miller, Colin Moriarty level Uncharted fans, you know? But I would think somebody like Bradley Cooper. I would even think somebody. I hate to see it. I'd hate to say it because he plays everything. Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
That's Nathan Drake, not Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Then again, when they shoot this, he's going to probably be older because he's filming Spider-Man, Homecoming, and
Avengers.
Avengers, you know, part 60 and part 61, Infinity War, Gauntlet, Omega Gauntlet, whatever.
I'll say I more want to see a young Nathan Drake than I do a young Han Solo. Okay? So.
I'd agree with that statement.
But Nathan Drake, I've never been one of these people that plays a game like Uncharted and thinks, wow, I'd like to see a movie of that.
Well, those games are so cinematic
Exactly.
now. It's not like it was when we were kids.
Right. It's like, that was already good. If I wanted to see an Uncharted movie, I'd just play Uncharted again. You know what I mean? Or go watch a Let's Play of somebody who can get through it quicker than I can.
Sean Levy's directing this. He directed the movie Real Steel. I think you and I may have saw that together. It's the Hugh Jackman robot fight movie.
Robots. I enjoyed that.
That was a fun movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like an epic film that transcended my life, but you
Better
know,
than Transformers 2.
it was. Yeah, it was on FX like 6 or 7 months ago, and I watched like an hour of it. If that says anything.
Only an hour.
As far as the Han Solo thing, the thing about that is Han Solo, his story has been told.
Yeah.
And we don't need to go back and tamper with that because he has just an epic journey. Including one that finished just a couple years ago in The Force Awakens, so it's branched a couple generations of Star Wars fans. Whereas Nathan Drake here, we've never seen his story. So in a way, it makes sense to start him out young. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. I'm just saying it's not, in particular, my cup of tea. Maybe that's because I'm an old man now.
I guess.
And then I see a kid, I'm like, damn, I'm old.
It's just nothing negative in my eyes about it. It's like
there's nothing negative. But
right, so I'm not super like, whoa, that's great. But it's like, cool. Like, I'll wait for a trailer to come out before I start actually caring.
All right, so let's get into some cinematic universe stuff.
Ooh.
This comes the way of Universal. They have announced their own cinematic universe called the Dark Universe, and they've added Johnny Depp to it as the Invisible Man. He already joins Russell Crowe, who's, I guess, playing Dr. Frankenstein. No, Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde. I don't know. I'm not a Universal monster. Okay. He's either Dr. Frankenstein or Dr. Jekyll. I don't know which one he is. This is something we desperately need Jerry on here for. So they're building these movies as a universe. The Bride of Frankenstein comes out like February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2018, 2019. I think it's 2019. You know we got The Mummy June 9th. So Tom Cruise.
Bride of Frankenstein's the second one?
Yes, that Mummy's first, then Bride of Frankenstein. Then there's going to be a Frankenstein, I believe, which is odd, the order of that, based on what I know.
We need another Frankenstein origin movie?
I mean, what was it?
We know the
Frankenstein?
story.
What was the one with?
Jerry
and I reviewed it on the
did.
podcast. I don't think it was Frankenstein. It had Aaron Eckhart in it.
Yeah,
I think it was Frankenstein. Yeah. But yeah, that's that is good enough as far as
Will Smith and a bunch of Chuck Taylors.
It was.
That's iRobot.
Yeah, that's iRobot. I don't know how I feel about this news. I'm not a big Universal Monsters fan. Obviously, that's something that's really Jerry's forte.
I enjoyed watching some like the Wolfman stuff back in the day. And one of my school libraries had like these old books with like stills from the movies, and I read the stories and stuff. I like the idea of them, even though I'm not like a big buff of them. You know?
Javier Bardem, who is playing Captain Salazar. Salazar there.
Oh, man,
these
great.
names are just they're killing me today. All right, so who's playing Captain Salazar is going to join Johnny Depp in this after starring alongside him in Pirates of the Caribbean. Johnny Depp needs to make some money right now, apparently.
Does he? He's in a new Pirates film.
He's blew through his fortune completely.
All
he's
those
been spending
Australian
millions
legal fees when his brother's dog's over there.
All that buying islands and whatnot, you just
if China can do it, Johnny Depp can do it.
I just don't. There's nothing much here to really make me look forward to this.
I mean, it's a Johnny Depp movie. I enjoy Johnny Depp's.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go see Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man Tell No Tales.
I'm not.
Just based simply on that, even though it has a Rotten Tomato score of 32%.
Hey, it's better than Baywatch right now.
Did you know that in England, and I know this from reading Empire magazine, because it is a British publication, it's not in this issue. In England, it's called Pirates of the Caribbean, Captain Salazar's Revenge. It's not called Dead Man Tell No Tales. I have no idea why that's the case. They didn't really explain it in the expose they did for Dead Man Tell No Tales. I'm more excited for Dead Man Tell No Tales, even though people say it sucks, than I am for this potential dark universe that could be good with Johnny Depp.
Well, it's kind of similar to the Nathan Drake Uncharted news. Like it's such an unknown that we don't know what this is going to be yet. All we have to go on right now is The Mummy.
The casting's great. I mean, you got Tom Cruise, you got Javier, you got Johnny Depp, you got Russell Crowe. I mean, this is top-notch A-list casting. Like, Universal apparently thinks they have a hit with The Mummy. Is tracking to make over $40 million opening weekend. And apparently the test screenings were really well.
Yeah.
So...
It didn't make my top 10 list of the summer, but like, it was definitely like an honorable mention. Like it looks
in my top 10 list.
Yeah, it looks good.
I will say this, though. Dead Man Tell No Tales tested better than any Pirates movie is what I read in Empire. So sometimes...
What?
I swear, they said that it
better than the first one?
It tested better than the first
one.
That's what Jerry Bruckheimer said, who's the producer of these movies.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just spinning some bullshit, trying to get people excited to go see a bad
All the
movie.
people that gave negative reviews are dead, because Dead Man Tell No Tales. You're welcome.
That's right. All right, so let's move on from that news into some rather sad news. We started Epic News with some sad news. We'll end Epic News with some sad news. Okay. And we're going to discuss this within a film context a little bit, but I want to tread lightly here.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder's daughter, I think he has 2 or 3 kids. His daughter committed suicide back in March. And Zack and Deborah Snyder, who is a producer on most of his films, his wife, decided that it would be best for them to go back to work and finish Justice League. Just kind of put their head to the ground, and working would be the best therapy. Get back to normal, which is what a lot of people say to do after a tragic event like that. Right,
completely understandable.
It is understandable. So he comes back, starts working on Justice League. This movie's got to be close to being done. At least you would hope so.
Right.
News breaks this week, like Tuesday night. I mean, rather shocking news that he's stepping down. But not only that, Joss Whedon, who directed the first two Avengers film, and basically the MCU was launched on his back, right? The culmination of that, and he was kind of the mastermind behind that whole Phase 1, which obviously has spawned just a billion-dollar empire over there with the MCU movies. So, Joss Whedon stepping in. Here's what we don't know. Are they going to delay the film? As of now, it's still slated for a November 2017 release.
Yeah.
Are there going to be reshoots? There's rumors that there are going to be reshoots. We don't know yet. And how much is Joss Whedon going to have an impact on this film? And should we be worrying about that at all? Because as film fans, it's hard not to worry about that. Or be excited about Joss Whedon being involved in a Justice League movie. But as human beings, you got to stop and be like, these are not even real people. The characters, I mean, not Snyder and Whedon, but the characters of the film. And, you know, a lot of things set precedent over movies, even though we love them so much. This is real life.
Yep.
What was your overall reaction when this news broke? Were you shocked like the rest of the world?
Well, I was shocked because the first news you see, all the articles are just about Zack Snyder stepping down, Joss Whedon stepping in, and you're like, well, what? Like, what's happening? Like, this is like April Fool's was a while ago. Like, this is insane.
I thought the article was fake when somebody texted it to me.
Yeah.
Amos texted it to me.
Yeah, and then you find out, like, the reason Zack Snyder's stepping down and stuff like that. I mean, I think that the movie sounds like it's pretty much done. Even if they're doing reshoots, like, the theme of, like, I don't think they're going to do massive reshoots. It sounds like the reshoots they're going to do are just small, average, we want to add the scene, we want to change the scene type thing. It doesn't sound like anything crazy. Not like they're trying to change the theme or anything. Not like the rumored reshoots for Suicide Squad where they're trying to make it more humorous. And supposedly Joss Whedon was already kind of pegged, because he's already in the universe. He's directing
Batgirl.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so he was supposed to already pegged to write these kind of like these reshoots.
They were going to, or they had already, I'm not sure about the timing and the logistics of it, brought him on set to kind of assist and do some reshoots.
Right, exactly. So I don't think that, you know, this is going to, I don't think Justice League is going to turn into Avengers style, unfortunately, because what I've seen Justice League so far, I'm not necessarily looking forward to it. But
and you know, for Zack Snyder's sake, I mean, who cares if the movie's bad? I mean, Warner Brothers cares. A lot of fans are going to be disappointed. But I mean, he's got much bigger things on his mind.
Sure, I'm sure he still cares whether this movie's good or not. I mean, it's still a work that he's highly attached to. So
yeah, but I was just talking in a broader context.
Sure,
I mean, I want the movie to do well. I love the Justice League. I love these characters, in particular Flash, Batman, and Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like I said, it's just a movie, and it's kind of tricky. How do you treat news like this?
Yeah.
I mean, because a little part of you wants to get excited, and then you're like, should I feel bad for getting excited? But it was human nature to when you saw that Joss Whedon Justice League.
Yeah.
I mean, what fanboy, at least for a split second before they heard that second piece of the news, didn't geek out?
A little bit, I guess. Even if Zack Snyder was just stepping down for whatever reason, even if it wasn't this tragic news.
If the studio had asked him to step down, I would be thinking we'd be looking at a delay.
I think we're looking at an awful film. I'm serious. If you told me like halfway through the studio kicks Zack Snyder out and Joss Whedon comes in, you're like, oh well, this is going to be a piece of crap. Like this is going to be like tonally,
based
like
on
Batman's
that
going to kill somebody in one scene and then be like doing like a bat dance in the next scene. You know what I mean? Like so
that may be better than what we're going to get. Unfortunately,
maybe more entertaining. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna really change too much at all as far as this film. I don't think it's gonna be delayed. I don't think it's gonna change the theme.
Does it change how people judge this movie? So in other words,
I think people are gonna put too much of an emphasis on it.
On like what? On Joss Whedon or Snyder?
Just like Joss Whedon's coming in, he's doing reshoots and yada yada. It's like every film goes through reshoots, and Joss Whedon is just coming in to try to stay the course. She's not moving the ship somewhere else. He's just trying to stay the course. Like they're just
like Bush 41 taking over for Reagan after 2 terms. That was his motto: stay the course, stay the course.
I mean, it's really.
I mean,
Zack Snyder has steered this ship to the island. You know, Snyder's just
the island of Themyscira.
Yeah, that's right. But if that's my metaphor. Snyder or
Whedon
is just basically bringing it into dock. Like, the ship's there. It's done. They just got some reshoots. I mean, it's coming out in November.
Does it make fans go easier on Snyder based on the circumstance if this film is a flop? That's a tough question to answer.
Hopefully, somewhat. It just in a general, like, internet people are awful people sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think if this film, like, if people don't like the film, they're still gonna blame Zack bad Zack Snyder film. You know what I mean? People have been pretty sour on him for a little while.
If it's good, I feel like Snyder gets none of the credit. I feel
No,
like
I
people will
totally
be like, we didn't come in and save this movie.
I hope not. Those people are dumb.
I don't know, man. Zack Snyder is so polarizing, and when you talk about polarizing being love-hate, there's a lot more on the hate than there is the love for Snyder.
Sure. Well, it's one of those "what have you done for me recently" type things. And I mean, even people who are fan of Zack Snyder's like I am, it's like a love-hate thing because I love like 300 and Watchmen and stuff, and then I do not like Man of Steel. And
see, I love 300. I like Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead.
I actually like Man of Steel. I like the Watchmen movie.
Yeah.
Which is, we're in the minority on that, I believe.
This was weird. I thought it was good.
I thought it was decent. I thought it was one of the better comic book adaptations. I think the stuff that he changed from the graphic novel to the book was the right stuff to change.
Yeah, I came in not knowing anything about the comic, so that probably helped me, I guess.
But our best wishes go out to the Snyder family.
For
Thoughts,
sure.
Prayers to them, and we hope Justice League is a good film, but more importantly, we hope that they're able to grieve and reflect, and hopefully we'll see Zack Snyder back in the director's chair, whether it's for another DC film or I would like to see him do like something completely different outside of superheroes.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew, let's get to the main event
right.
of Summer 2715 for the Confirmed Epic Podcast, which is the Icons of Cinema Summer Showdown series. Here is the goal of this series. It is to determine the most definitive characters in the history of film.
Right.
When I say the history, I mean from 1960 to present, because we debated where we were going to start this at, and 60s was kind of pushing it based on our film knowledge, but I think you and I felt just comfortable enough to start in the 60s. So let me go ahead and explain what I'm talking about. Over the course of a few episodes, we are going to tackle a decade in film. And we are going to try to come up with the 6 most memorable, most iconic most quintessential, definitive, whatever word you want to throw in there, characters in cinema from that particular decade.
Right.
So we'll try to come up with 6 from the 60s, then we'll go 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and then the nows.
Yep.
And then we'll put it up for a final vote. Let me explain what I mean by a final vote and how this voting process is going to work. It's going to be conducted via Twitter polls. So at the end of this episode, we will have come up with a list of 6 cinema icons of the 1960s.
Yeah.
We're then going to put those 6 icons on a ballot, put it on a Twitter poll for a week. So this is Thursday, so till next Thursday, this podcast will post Thursday night. And you, the listeners, the readers of the epicreview.com, will vote on who is the most iconic out of our 6 nominees. Mm-hmm. Here is the rules as far as us nominating our 6. We each get 2 confirmations right off the get-go. What I mean by that is 2 locks. Mm-hmm. So even if... No, 1 lock each, 2 locks overall. What I mean by that is, let's say I want to lock in Johnny Depp, Captain Jack Sparrow.
Right.
And you do not necessarily agree with that, but I'm protecting that character.
Okay.
Same for you. Say you wanted to, lock in Vince Vaughn's character from Dodgeball.
Classic.
Yeah, you could lock in that character, and I may not agree with it, and I probably wouldn't agree with it, but then the 4 remaining, we will have to debate who we're going to put on the ballot of 6. Here's where this is going to get tricky. I was thinking about this. Do you immediately make a lock just to ensure that the character you want makes the ballot?
No.
or do you talk it out and not give a lock to one that would be an easy agreement on by us?
I think we're going to talk and like, okay, yeah, we both agree this is clearly an iconic person, iconic character from this decade, so why would I give a lock to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here is the ultimate goal. Once we have the definitive characters of each decade, once the series is at an end, and we're going to do this over the course of each podcast, so each decade in cinema will be a different podcast discussion topic, and we're going to have some movie reviews, so this won't be every week, but whenever we don't have a featured film review or some type of special guest who wants to come on the Confirmed Epic podcast, this will be what we're discussing this summer 2017. So once we have the definitive character voted on by our listeners for each decade, we'll then put a poll of 6 characters from one each from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and nows, and we will choose the most iconic character in film from the time period we started with, which is the 1960s.
We're going to choose based on those last 6 that we come up with?
Yeah.
We're not going to let them choose?
We're going to let them choose, then we're going to discuss the results. So
so we can berate their awful choices. Like, Buzz Lightyear? Really, guys?
Yeah.
Really?
Ultimately, it will be you, the listeners of the Confirmed Epic podcast, who decide who the winners are, not only for each decade, but the overall icon of cinema, 1960s to now.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get this started, Andrew Stokes. Now, we have to preface this by saying we have not seen all the movies of the 1960s.
I've seen all of them.
Well, Andrew, being the cinephile, the film buff that he is, may have, but no, he's being a bit facetious there. What we have done as far as coming up with these characters is we went through IMDb's list of top 100 films for each decade, and we picked characters from those top 100 films. Now, it wasn't just limited to that being the characters we discuss. If we want, like, I wanted to throw in the Alamo into this discussion.
Okay.
Davy Crockett, John Wayne, but that wasn't considered a top 100 film of the 1960s, but you're free to throw in something out of those top 100. So we can debate the merits of it. Some of these will be characters that we know, and that's why they're iconic.
Yeah.
It could be a film that we have not seen, but is so well known. For example, until last night, I had not seen 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Right.
The Stanley Kubrick I think it's 1968, I believe.
Yeah.
Classic. And I knew that Hal, the AI, the computer system, was an iconic character.
Yeah.
Which he's going to be one that we can discuss in the 1960s. So that kind of tells you where we're going with that. So don't be offended if it's not a film we haven't seen. If it's a film you think we should absolutely watch, tweet us, comment, and we'll make time to watch it. At least I especially will this summer.
Like you said, if we know who this character is and we haven't even seen the film, that just kind of goes to show more that this is really an iconic character. And going through this list and kind of looking at some of these icons, there's definitely some films that I kind of like, I should see this film. I want to see this film now. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I made a list. We don't have to go in the order of this list. I don't want it to become monotonous. We're sitting here listing things off. But when you think of cinema in the 1960s, who was the first character you thought of, like, has to be on this list?
After having looked at the list, I guess, looked at some of them, there's some that pop out to me. Atticus Finch, Hal, like you said, was The Man with No Name or whatever from the
Clint Eastwood,
right?
Yeah, from the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly trilogy of movies.
From Breakfast at Tiffany's,
Audrey Hepburn, which is a movie that my wife adores, that I have not seen.
Yeah, same.
And it's I hate to say it's a chick flick movie, but it is kind of like a quintessential chick flick movie.
Right.
It's one of the first chick flicks, at least from the way my wife explained it to me. When I thought of the characters of the 1960s, I'm glad you brought up the Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird, because that was the first one I thought about, and there's 2 reasons. I know in high school they still have to do this today because I'm a high school history teacher, not English, so I don't teach this. You had to read To Kill a Mockingbird, and then we watched the film.
Yeah.
So the Harper Lee book is, epic in its own right, but to have an adaptation that was epic as well.
Yeah.
And to have that film, I think it won Best Picture. I think it was 1962 that To Kill a Mockingbird won Best Picture. to have that adaptation do that, and I believe Gregory Peck, who played Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird, Robert Mulligan was the one who directed To Kill a Mockingbird. Gregory Peck, he is the one who played Atticus Finch. I just wanted to clarify that. Barack Obama, when he gave his farewell address, quoted Atticus Finch. Of course, the line's in the book, but his delivery of the line in the courthouse in To Kill a Mockingbird, sometimes you need to put yourself in someone else's shoes and walk around in those shoes for a little while and just think how they see the world, how they feel things, experience things, and then think about what you're saying or what you're doing. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing there. That's not a word for word from the book. But if it's that quintessential that you have to read it, it's one of those books you don't like reading in school when you read it.
Yeah.
But after you're done with it and you watch the movie and you look back 5 or 6 years from now, 5 or 6 years past you reading it, you're glad you did.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Atticus Finch has to be on this list. What do you think, Andrew Stokes?
Yeah, he's a recognizable character. You know what I mean? You can kind of see a still of him from the film. And that's kind of one of the things I thought about a lot of these characters. Like, can I kind of picture them? You know what I mean? If you mention it to me, does an image from the film, and there's definitely, I think, a pretty famous image of him in the courtroom.
Yeah.
That really
if
comes
you
to mind
Google
with his
image
glasses
it, that will be like the first 5 or 6 images that pop up.
Exactly. So I just think from that standpoint, even if the film sucked, I think it's still iconic because it's stuck with us this whole time. This is one of the reasons I think this 60s list may be a little bit easier, and then maybe this is going to get harder as they go, because some of these some of these films, like, really, who knows, like, you may recognize the name of the film, but it really has kind of been started to get lost over time. Whereas a lot of these more recent things, a lot of the more recent decades, a lot of these films are more recent in our minds, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if something has been talked about from the 1960s to now, it kind of makes it a little bit easier to decide, all right, this deserves this place in the pantheon of the great characters of all time. So can we confirm Atticus Finch for one of the 6? Okay, so we got Atticus Finch.
No, I got a question for you. What do we do for a character who spawns multiple decades, especially somebody like James Bond, who's multiple actors have played multiple decades? How are we going to... I think James Bond belongs in one of these decades for sure. Yeah,
I think you, with Bond, you have to do the actor that played him and go with the decade that the actor started playing in. Okay. So speaking of this decade, Sean Connery, probably the most famous Bond still to this day, because he was actually, I believe there was one movie where another guy played Bond, and it was like a lesser movie. Yeah. And then when MGM really pushed it, they rolled it out with Sean Connery, and he had his run of great classic Bond movies. Yeah. And I've seen some of the Sean Connery Bond films. I've not seen them front to back, nor do I remember every line from them like somebody like Barbecue 17, Jerry Reed would. Yeah. But so Sean Connery, he may have been in the 70s. I believe he maybe carried over to the 1970s as Bond, but we're going to just count him in the 60s here. Okay. Let's talk about Sean Connery Bond. Okay. Well, a lot of times when people talk about Bond, what's the first thing they do? They quote Bond. Yeah. A martini, shaken, not stirred. Mm-hmm. I have a license to kill. Something of that nature. And a lot of times when people quote Bond, what do? The Sean Connery impression. Yeah. So to me, or they do a bad British impression.
I think it's just people like doing a Sean Connery impression, even if it's not Bond. Yeah. I like doing a Celebrity Jeopardy SNL Sean Connery. You all move, Trebek.
People love doing a Sean Connery impression. Yeah. And it's not just that Sean Connery is probably the best Bond, but he set the precedent for what a Bond has to be. Okay. Fierce, suave, has to be a lover and a fighter, as we talked about earlier when we were talking about the passing of Sir Roger Moore. So do we want to confirm Connery Bond right now, or do you want to move through a discussion of some of these other characters?
I think that's a Bond. I don't know. I feel like
he is Bond. How can we not put him on this
I think Roger Moore, I picture more. Really? I think of Bond. I think so, yeah.
When she was more of you picture Roger Moore? Yeah. Why?
It's literally just what I picture. Because I should preface, I haven't seen any Bond film outside of Casino Royale and Goldfinger, I think.
Really?
Or one of the 90s Bonds.
So you didn't see Skyfall?
No, I still haven't seen
Holy
Skyfall.
shit. That's one of the best movies of the past decade.
It's on my queue.
Oh my god, you have to watch. It's one of the most beautifully shot films of all time, but we could talk about Skyfall.
More beautifully shot than Sucker Punch?
Yes.
Okay.
Another Zack Snyder masterpiece. I've seen all the Craig ones. I've seen all the Brosnan ones. I've seen a handful of the Connery ones, but that's it. As far as Timothy Dalton and Roger Moore, those are my Bond blind spots. So, but to me, the guy who set a precedent for Bond has to be on this list.
Sure.
All right, so Sean Connery Bond is confirmed. So who else do you have in mind here, Andrew, looking at this list?
I'm trying to think of who else. I mean, how do you feel about Hal? We talked about Hal a little bit. Really?
I was glad you brought this up. I watched 2001 last night. By the way, I got a 4K Blu-ray player, which I'll talk about later.
Okay.
But it upgrades everything to like an upscale of 2160. God, this film looks incredible for something that was made. So, as far as Kubrick being a master of the craft, just how he shoots, I can see how he inspired somebody like Christopher Nolan. Especially
visually.
That's what I'm talking about. When it comes to like Interstellar, there's so much that visually is an homage to 2001. Hal's the best character, I think, in 2001: A Space Odyssey, for sure. But I think that film is I'm going to steal a quote from David Chin, a masturbatory exercise. Yeah. It is self-pleasure of Stanley Kubrick. It is him off. It's the most Stanley. I hadn't seen Clockwork Orange, so. But I can't imagine it gets much more Kubrick than 2001. I mean, you have 10 minutes of score playing with no dialogue. When the film's good and it's hitting on all cylinders, it's tense. Like when they're fixing the satellite. Yeah. When he's going in, like the final scene is awesome. But the journey to get to that final scene where we have to go on the acid trip and all that was not.
I don't know. I thought I literally started laughing during that. I was like, is this for real? Is this really the movie?
And then with the guy going through the stages. By the way, we should explain the movies we've seen of these are game for spoilers, so I should have prefaced the conversation.
There were colors in 2001: Space Odyssey. Spoilers.
I mean, you gotta admire the man considering that came out in '68.
Some of the visual effects. It's like, wow, that's cool. But like the movie overall, I'm not a fan.
I'm not a fan of the film either. I'm a fan of Hal. I think he sits.
There's one problem, I think, going into the film was I didn't know much about it other than it's supposed to be a masterpiece. And I thought the whole movie took place on a spaceship or space station with this computer taking things over. I thought this was the entire movie. It's like 2 hours before you get to that. I mean, it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
There's 2 intermissions.
And it's like, I think I was just completely caught off guard. Maybe I enjoy it more a second time. Don't ever plan on watching it a second time.
No, I couldn't sit through it. It's one of those movies I'm glad I've seen it, being a fan of film.
Yeah, exactly.
But I wouldn't watch it again.
Yeah.
So
maybe I had the wrong impression going into it, and it is what it is. But yeah,
I'm not going to put Hal on this list because.
Well, but see, that's crazy. But he's so iconic, though.
Yeah,
Hal is so iconic.
And I hate to keep using the word precedent, but in history, when we teach George Washington, we always have to say the line, and it's always tested. He said a precedent for future presidents. Yeah. Like he was the example of the chief executive officer. And that's how we talked about Connery with Bond setting the precedent for Bond, but Hal is for these. It was so weird. I watched this, and then I think to David, played by Michael Fassbender, and kind of how he comes off the hinge and whatnot. And it makes me think, wow, this is what Hal did. Yeah. So you can see how Hal's been an inspiration for science fiction tropes from 68 to now, including Alien Covenant.
But you want to take him off the list?
I want to wait. I want to wait on him.
Okay.
All right, so he is like a reserve right now. Okay. So these two we have now, neither one of them have been considered our locks. We have Atticus Finch and Sean Connery Bond. One I want to talk about is The Graduate. I haven't seen The Graduate. Dustin Hoffman plays Benjamin Braddock. This character, the reason I know about him is because my father-in-law loves The Graduate. He talks about The Graduate. He's told me I should watch it so many times. It's a beloved movie and film. I think I'd get more entertainment out of it than 2001: A Space Odyssey. But apparently the plot of the movie, Dustin Hoffman falls in love with an older woman. And I think there's even some science fiction elements in there too. Like he gets shown what his life can be under certain circumstances. And
Is it not a comedy?
It's a weird movie, man. It I hadn't seen it, like I said, but based on the way I understand it, kind of almost how Ghostbusters blends that science fiction comedy. This almost blends like romance, science fiction, comedy into one.
I always thought it was like an early raunchy comedy.
No, it's definitely not.
I think this is one of those films where you think about it and an image kind of comes to mind, and I picture Dustin Hoffman. I believe it's Dustin Hoffman's character. He's standing in like a doorway or something, looking towards the camera, and you see like this woman's legs crossed right in front of the camera.
That was like the cover, the VHS, the DVD, and a poster, I think.
And for some reason, that made me think of like a raunchy comedy, like a college comedy almost.
It's hard for us to put him on this list because we don't know a ton about him. But
and I don't think the character is that iconic either. Like I think The Graduate, a lot of people would consider, one of these movies that you should check out, especially if you're checking out 1960s movies. But I'm not sure that character itself is necessarily...
Coming out of making this list and preparing for this podcast, out of all the movies I hadn't seen, it was the one I probably wanted to watch the most. Okay. So I definitely am going to put it on my list to watch, hopefully this summer.
Well, the movie off of this list I think I want to watch the most that I haven't seen is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Have you never seen that?
Never seen it, and this is a movie where it's like, I think Clint Eastwood, his character is an iconic character. The music is iconic.
Just
the title is iconic. Like there's a lot of things about this movie that are still like relevant.
Did you know it's part of a trilogy? I don't know if it's I can't remember if it's the first. I think it's the first.
Is it trilogy in that they're all connected?
Like, it's the same character.
Right, it's the same character. So it's not
a fistful of dollars, a few dollars more.
And I knew the characters in multiple things, but are they connected stories or just
I've only seen Good, Bad, Ugly, which I think is the first film. I hadn't went back and watched the other two.
I need to. I'm a fan of westerns, but
Evan Truelove loves this movie. I borrowed the Blu-ray copy from him. It's one I want to add to my collection and buy. I mean, when people think Western, they think of two people, John Wayne and Clint Eastwood. Yeah. And Clint Eastwood, this started his career as the Western king post John Wayne. Mm-hmm. And that carried on through Unforgiven in the 1990s. And these are directed by Sergio Leone. Yeah. That is the this is the spaghetti Western genre. Yeah. I want to put him on this list.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so we got The Man with No Name, so that's on the list.
What's his name
again? He actually does have... They end up revealing his name or something.
It's like... some like common guy name.
Yeah, The Man with No Name. Okay, so let's keep on moving through the list. Elizabeth Taylor, Cleopatra, 1960. For the longest time, this was one of the highest grossing films of all time. Mm-hmm. It was the highest grossing film of the 1960s. I know Cleopatra. Okay. When I see Elizabeth Taylor in that role, I immediately recognize it. Mm-hmm. But it's hard for me to argue her on this list right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure I feel it either. I'd have to look up an image for, you know what I mean? Nothing comes to mind. Like Cleopatra, like you said, because of it was a big grossing film and whatnot. The name is still stuck in my head, I guess. But yeah.
Well, let's move on to a franchise that's still alive to this day, Planet of the Apes. Started in 1968. Mm-hmm. Have you seen the original Planet of the Apes?
No, I have not.
Okay, I have. I watched it before the first James Franco one came out. I went back and watched the original. One of the when you think of Charlton Heston, you think of Planet of the Apes. Mm-hmm. His character George Taylor is iconic for being a Charlton Heston role. Yeah. But he does not carry this film.
The character
in my
himself?
opinion. The character doesn't. The apes carry the film much more than he is the main human character.
Yeah.
It is a memorable role.
That's fair. Yeah, it's almost like the Statue of Liberty at the end is a super iconic scene. And I think him like yelling and screaming at the apes is pretty iconic, but the character,
You damn dirty ape!
yeah, but I understand the character itself, isn't necessarily. I would agree with that.
So I'm not going to put Heston on here. So
Sorry, Heston.
Paul Newman, Cool Hand Luke. Have not seen this Western?
Really? I've seen it. It's really good.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay, so talk some about it. Should this be worthy of the icons of the 60s?
Jeez, I don't know, because I think the movie, again, I think this is one of those, the movie's really good. I don't know if the main character, is...
When you think of Western characters, that's one of the names. Like, we're going to talk about Butch Cassidy and
What's
the
funny, I don't even
Sundance
think of it
Kid
as a
and-
Western.
Okay.
I guess I could kind of see that, but it's definitely like, I mean, he's a convict, you know what I mean? It's not, and it takes place, he's like part of this jailhouse, you know what I mean, that goes out there and does work on the side of the road and stuff like that. And it takes place in the 60s, if I'm not mistaken. It doesn't take place in the Wild West or anything.
Yeah.
But it has some, I don't know, it was just good. I remember I saw it once, my dad wanted me to see it. I remember it being a really good film. I'm not sure that Paul Newman's character is necessarily super iconic.
If I saw him, there's a 50-50 shot I'd know who it was.
That's fair. I feel like the sheriff or whoever, the jail house,
The warden.
yeah, maybe it's the warden. I feel like he may be a little more, because he has the what's that iconic line?
I don't know. Let us know if it comes to you. But it sounds
It's like, I mean, it
sounds like Cool Hand Luke's not making the list.
okay.
All right, but if that line comes to you, let us know. And
Yeah.
again, we don't have immediate internet access. This is something we'd normally Google.
Yeah.
Let's move on to more family-friendly territory.
Okay.
Mary Poppins.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Julie Andrews plays Mary Poppins.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
Talk about how culturally relevant that is coming
Yeah.
up in Guardians of the Galaxy. There was that movie about the making of Mary Poppins that had Tom Hanks in it that got nominated for Best Picture. It was a great film, 2014, I believe. I cannot think. Saving Mr. Banks.
What we've got here is a failure to communicate.
Oh,
That's
that
the
is
line.
an iconic line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this is a name. These are songs that are sang by Julie Andrews as Mary Poppins, A Spoonful of Sugar, all that stuff.
Yeah.
That continue to come up, year after year after year after
Yeah.
year. But also alongside her, you have Dick Van Dyke's character, Bert, who you see him in his little hat, and he's instantly recognizable.
I guess. I don't think more so than Mary Poppins.
No.
Yeah.
But Mary Poppins...
Bert.
I think Mary Poppins needs to be on this list.
I agree.
Okay, so we got Mary Poppins on.
We're going to wind up with more than 6. We're going to cut this down.
We got 2 more spots here, and we're
Oh,
going to
goodness.
skip some of the ones that may be, that we know wouldn't make this list here. Mia Farrow is Rosemary in Rosemary's Baby, directed by Roman Polanski. Have
Yeah.
you seen Rosemary's Baby?
I haven't.
I haven't either, so it's hard for us to...
Well, plus, I mean, Rosemary, I can't really think. Again, she doesn't come to mind. Like, Rosemary's Baby is a known film, but, like, no really images or anything comes to mind.
This movie it's the same director. Roman Polanski's the same guy that did The Exorcist, which was the 70s. That was 73, The Exorcist. So we'll be talking about him again on a future episode, but I don't think so either here. All right, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Paul Newman again. Robert as Butch Cassidy. Robert Redford as the Sundance Kid.
Yeah.
These are 2 names that are synonymous with one another, like Batman and Robin, like Bert and Ernie.
Yeah.
I mean, these are names that go together.
Like Ash and Pikachu.
Exactly. However, I have not seen this film. I hate to sound like a broken record. Like
I've heard it's interesting, though.
Yeah. If you ask me to picture these characters in my head, I can do that with most anybody on this list, even if I have not seen the film.
Yeah.
However, with this, I cannot.
See, I think I can picture them in like their cowboy hats and stuff.
But you haven't
I have
seen
not
it.
seen this film, no.
Okay, so it's hard for us to...
I'm fine with passing.
Yeah, we'll pass on them. All right, Phil Harris as Baloo.
Baloo's a pretty iconic character.
Not only that, he shows up in multiple Disney things.
And they just remade it.
Yeah, he shows up in what's the name? The Tailspins TV show, the Robin Hood movie.
That was Baloo and Tailspins?
Yeah.
I thought it was just a different bear.
Oh, it was Baloo.
I had no idea. I'd never seen Tailspins.
I'm like 99% sure it's Baloo because I used to watch that growing up.
Yeah.
So, and then, yeah, exactly. You had Bill Murray voicing Baloo in the live action. He was definitely the most memorable part of that live action
I just
film.
watched some little bit about this nature reserve, and one of the bears in the nature reserve was named Baloo.
And when you think of iconic Disney songs, the basic bare necessities, that is one that instantly pops in your head and stays in there a few days.
Yeah.
Well, let's put Baloo on now.
Okay.
And he may have to come off.
Okay.
Because I think we're going to end up, like you said, because we're at 5 now.
Yeah.
I think we're going to end up, and we'll continue to add, and we'll just have to trim it at the end.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Let's see. There's some more James Bond characters on here, but I think we're not going to put another Bond character on this list. Sean Connery's pretty much a lot. Let's move on to another Disney character.
Yeah.
Cruella de Vil.
Yeah.
101 Dalmatians.
She's pretty iconic as well, man.
Cruella de Vil.
Yeah. I remember there's a Simpsons episode where Mr. Burns is trying to make a vest out of the Simpsons puppies or something like that.
I'm glad you brought that up. Because whenever you see fur like that, I think of Cruella
Absolutely.
de Vil.
There's an episode of Friends I watched recently where Phoebe gets a fur coat as a gift and she really doesn't know what to do with it. And all I could think was Cruella de Vil.
Now, I will say this. We were in line at Food Line this past winter, and there was a wealthier lady ringing up in front of us with a giant,
White? Tell me it was white.
It was not a white coat.
Oh,
it was like leopard or something. But it was
Okay.
like, you could tell this is like real animal
Really?
fur.
Wow.
And my wife goes to me and she's like, or says to me, sorry, I didn't know Cruella de Vil shopped here. So, I mean...
Did you buy a bucket of blood and throw it on her?
No, I did not. But I'm going to put Cruella de Vil on this list.
All right, we're at 6 already.
We're at 6. I think this is going to work out based on the characters we have left on here. Okay, so... I put Pongo and Peditra on here.
Yeah.
But they're not going to top Cruella de Vil.
No, I don't think so.
No, off the list. That's for sure. That's the thing is when you have multiple, like with Bert and Mary Poppins, sometimes there's one that's clearly more iconic than the other, and they bump the other person off the list.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and
like Bert from Mary Poppins.
We got 3 here.
Got bumped.
John Wayne,
Gacy.
Davy Crockett,
Gacy.
the Alamo.
Okay.
John Wayne had many iconic westerns. The Alamo was kind of when he was winding down.
Yeah.
That was one of his last high grossing one. Actually, we cover the Alamo in American history, and I show the John Wayne Alamo in the fall when I teach this. It's a great film. It's a long-winded film. He is on the cutting edge of this list, in my opinion. I wouldn't knock anybody off this list.
Yeah, I think the thing with John Wayne, he's almost like one of those early. He's one of the earliest actors I feel like who you went and see a movie and it was John Wayne.
Yeah.
Regardless of what character he was kind of playing.
And like I said, he's kind of going toward the twilight of his career.
Yeah.
In the 1960s. So.
Yeah.
And he also played Rooster in True Grit.
Yeah.
Another big role. I mean, they remade that movie. It was a pretty big release. And the original is considered a lot more beloved than the remake, which is usually the case.
Right.
But again, I just don't think this is one of the later John Wayne films.
Yep.
I got one more on this list, Adam West Batman from the 60s Batman movie.
Don't forget about Burt Ward.
Burt Ward is Robin. Get your shark repellent out. I'm going to knock this off the list like he knocked the shark off.
I think if we were doing TV icons.
The 60s. He has to be on there.
Yeah,
but this is not a TV movie, but a spin-off of a TV show. So how could you knock anybody off this list?
Now, question for future lists. I don't think it's going to come in a problem here. But let's say this was a TV list. Could we put them as one entry together, like a duo that's so closely tied as Adam West and Burt Ward? Could we put them as one entry, like the two?
Oh, I see
together?
what you're saying. Like, could we have put Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid as one entry?
Right, or I think like later on, I think maybe Buzz Lightyear and Woody will come up.
I think we can do that.
Okay.
I think now if we're talking about 4 or 5 or 6 characters, no, you can't do that. But
you talking the entire Avengers cast.
Yeah, but if it's a duo,
okay.
like they're synonymous with one another, like Buzz and Woody.
Yeah.
So we have our list here, and that was without much debate.
Not really though, because we skipped over Audrey Hepburn. And Tiffany's.
My wife would kill me.
Norman Bates and Psycho, which I think is a big one.
I can't believe I missed that. I'm so sorry. I apologize to our listeners. Okay, so let's talk about these for a second. You want to start with the horror or the chick flick? Let's start with Breakfast at Tiffany's.
I think Audrey Hepburn has to be on there as well. I mean,
this is her most iconic film.
I mean, that's one of the most iconic. Like that picture of her like leaning on her elbows, she has her black gloves on.
Isn't she smoking like a cigarette?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
something?
She has a big holder and stuff. Yeah.
Like, my wife loves this film.
So iconic. Like the most I know about that movie is the song "We Breakfast at Tiffany's."
What about Julie Andrews as Maria in Sound of Music?
Oh goodness, I can't believe we forgot that too. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's
on here as well, but
goodness.
She's already on here as Mary Poppins. I think Mary Poppins is more as far.
I think they're both. I mean, I think Maria might be more the bigger character.
Well, let's go back to Hepburn for a second,
Okay.
and then we'll talk about Sound of Music.
Oh man,
yeah, this is getting tougher.
It is.
I was going through these and I missed some quintessential films, but this is our first time doing this, so we'll get smoother as time goes on.
Don't say we.
I'll get smoother as time goes on, but yeah, Audrey Hepburn I think has to be on this list just because. That image that you were referencing is one of the most iconic in cinema.
Exactly.
Like if you're putting a collage of American
icons.
cinema, like if you're opening a movie theater and you ask Josiah to paint you a collage, that image has to be on there.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put her on here.
And who does she knock off? Just you want to recap who we have on this list?
Here's who we have so far: Atticus Finch, Sean Connery Bond, The Man with No Name, Mary Poppins.
Not Mary Poppins, y'all.
Baloo, Cruella de Vil, and Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
And I still feel like...
remember, we each can protect one.
I know, and...
so let's put her on there. Let's come back to this list at the end. Let's talk about Sound of Music.
Okay. I feel like she has to be on there, man. That's another iconic... Her in, like, the field, twirling around.
But is that more iconic than Mary Poppins?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I think the images, I don't know. We're getting into, you know what I mean? Is that character reference today as much? Or is the image itself like...
here's what I think. I think the character Mary Poppins comes up much more.
Yeah.
But I think Sound of Music is something that's revisited much more.
Yeah.
It's played like every Thanksgiving on NBC. It's a big deal for them to have the TV rights to that. Believe it or not, some people, probably the target audience for that movie, still watch cinema on TV.
Crazies. Bunch of crazy people.
I just don't think she knocks Mary Poppins. Because Mary Poppins has to come off the list for her. We're not going to have
two
Julie Andrews characters.
Why not? If they're two iconic characters. But I mean, man, I don't know.
Well, let's put her on here now.
All right.
We'll come back to this list at the end.
Okay.
What is her character's name in Sound of Music? I'm like, I see her.
Maria?
Yeah, Maria. Okay. So let's talk about Psycho. Norman Bates Psycho.
Yeah.
Alfred Hitchcock, 1960.
I just wanted to mention it. I feel like the character's like kind of iconic, but I think it's more the imagery and the sound of this film that's really... If this was based solely on films, I think Psycho would have to be on here.
But Norman Bates doesn't have to be. But think about something like Bates Motel.
Sure.
Still a very popular show now.
Yeah.
When you think of every time you see a Halloween store or something, there's like a light up sign that says Bates Motel. He's one of the most quintessential characters in all of horror film.
That's true.
So let's put him on here, and I think he may be one that we talk off. So let's see who we got right now.
Okay.
But I do agree with you. I think as far as kind of setting the precedent for slasher scenes, the shower scene, the screeching music, all that stuff. Like, as far as director and horror cinema, I think the film is bigger than Bates.
Yeah.
Whereas I think with something like Nightmare on Elm Street, to go to the 80s, Krueger's bigger than the franchise.
Okay.
I think. At least I would argue that. So, Atticus, Sean Connery, Bond, The Man with No Name, Mary Poppins, Baloo, Cruella de Vil, Audrey Hepburn, Sound of Music, Julie Andrews' character, which is Maria, and Norman Bates from Psycho 1960. Who plays the original Norman Bates? I got it in my show notes here.
Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, it was Vince Vaughn. No, it's Anthony Perkins is the
Perkins.
actor's name. All right, let's narrow this down. So we got, how many we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we got to cut 2.
Kind of, but see, the problem is we put one on the back burner, which was Hal.
All right, well, let's put Hal on.
Okay,
on
and
this
I know
list.
you were remiss on him.
I don't want Hal on the list.
See, I was contemplating locking Hal on the list.
You're gonna lock Hal.
I'm not sure I'm going to.
Okay.
Because-
This is where this gets fun, though.
Yeah.
It really is a fun discussion topic to have. Let's think of who our locks are going to be, because then we can eliminate people. We can't eliminate...
Well, I think between both of us, I think like
Atticus has to make it.
I think one that we can both agree on, even more than him, is Audrey Hepburn, Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah, so there's no need for either one of us to lock
Right.
Audrey Hepburn. I think second here is Atticus Finch.
I think The Man with No Name is second, to be honest.
Really?
Even more than Atticus. I mean, Clint Eastwood, if you were to make a cowboy costume, you very well may make a Clint
And that
Eastwood.
sound effect, you know.
Yeah. Well, again, even that's getting more into the movie and
Yeah.
stuff itself, but like,
But
you
still
know,
synonymous
Clint Eastwood with
with
that
him.
duster on, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's like,
The Mondo poster is going to be the cover image for this podcast.
and we're
which
never
we-
going to put him on the list. Yeah, so we have to. I mean, we have to have him on the list. Not because of the image, but just because of that character.
But, I mean, are you locking him in? Or?
I'm not locking him in. I think we should both agree that he
Okay,
has to be on
so
this list.
Audrey Hepburn's on the list. So is Clint Eastwood, Man
Okay.
with No Name. So those are going to be our locks here. Not our locks, excuse me. That's what we've agreed on. So 2 of 6 we've agreed on. Can you agree Atticus should be on the list, or do I need to lock him in? Because if not, if you don't agree he should be on this list, he's my lock.
I don't necessarily agree that he should not be on the list. I'm not sure I'd have to.
Like, I mean, you would not pick Baloo or Cruella de Vil over freaking Atticus
Right,
Finch.
I don't think so. So, in fact, I almost feel like maybe Baloo can come off the list. I think if
Between the 2 animated characters, Baloo and Cruella de Vil, which one do we take? We may
I
take
think
both
Bill's
off.
bigger. I think we can take.
Let's take Baloo off.
I think we can take Baloo off.
The
Sorry,
Vil's
Jungle Book
arguably a top 3 Disney villain,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's saying something in their pantheon of villains.
Yeah.
So, I think we can take Norman Bates off just because we both agree that the film's bigger than the character.
Right. I think so.
Okay, so Norman Bates is also. Who do we got here? The Man with No Name, for sure.
Yeah.
Atticus Finch, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Audrey Hepburn, for sure. So that's 3 of the 6.
So we got 3 spots left.
We got 3 spots left, yeah. Man, this is tough. This is
Yeah.
really tough. I can't imagine when we get into some of the stuff that you and I know, like backwards and forwards. you
Yeah.
know? I don't want Hal on the list, but it's looking like you're going to lock him in.
I'm afraid I can't let you do that, Brad. I think I am going to lock him in.
Okay, so Andrew's lock is Hal. Okay, so he's locked in. So we got 2 spots here. So we have Julie Andrews from Sound of Music. Julie Andrews is Mary Poppins. Sean Connery, Bond, and Cruella de Vil.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to think of who because
James Bond is without a doubt an iconic character.
See, I want to use my lock on Cruella de Vil or Sean Connery Bond, and I can't decide which one to use the lock on. I'm
Yeah.
going to use it on Bond.
Okay.
Okay, so my lock, Sean Connery Bond.
Okay.
So what we got? 1 spot left.
I believe so, between
Sound
2
of
Julie
Music.
Andrews characters and Cruella de Vil.
I can't believe Mary Poppins is on the bubble on this list.
I know, but I mean, I
I think
know.
Mary. See, I think so. We're to the final spot here. I think Mary Poppins should be the 6th.
I think I agree with that. I think I can agree with that.
And that's tough.
That
I
is.
mean, you're knocking Maria off from Sound of Music. You're knocking off one of the top 3 Disney villains of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, think of her in that coat, that car, that music.
Yeah.
I hate taking Cruella de Vil off this list, but Yeah, I think we're going to have Mary Poppins there. It'll be interesting to see how the fans vote on Twitter.
Yeah.
Which you'll be able to find this Twitter poll at my Twitter, at The Real Brad Bell, and of course at AK Andrew Stokes. You'll
I'll retweet
this.
Yeah.
I don't
and
know.
I'll vote for Hal.
Do you ever pin tweets? I will have this
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, if you pin a tweet, it stays at the top of your...
Okay.
So I will pin this
I
to
won't
the top.
because I never tweet anything. So.
Yeah, so it'll probably be at the top anyway. So let's go through the list again. Final list, we have Atticus Finch, Sean Connery Bond, The Man with No Name, Mary Poppins, Audrey Hepburn, Breakfast at Tiffany's. I can't believe Hal. I can believe he's on the list, but...
Good job, Hal.
I would have rather had Cruella de Vil, but that was your lock. So I will say this is a decent list.
Yeah.
And that was a fairly decent discussion.
Yeah.
I think the fact that we were able to have this level of discussion about an era of film that we're not completely immersed in gives me hope for the future of this series. And it's something I'm looking forward to doing, aren't you?
Almost. I'm looking forward to doing it until we get to the, we're getting to the 90s and we're like,
The 2000s will be interesting because that's when you and I, a lot of those characters and films, that's when you and I became friends over these. So that'd be really interesting. I don't know. What do you want to do next week, Andrew? We can decide this live on the air. Do you want to review Logan? It just came out on Blu-ray. Or do you want to go to the 1970s? What do you think? Because that's our
I kind of want to go to the 70s personally, but I could rewatch Logan.
Let's well, how about this? See, I feel like if we're gonna review Logan, which we didn't on the podcast,
let's do Logan and give people time to vote on the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which I'm only gonna. Should I leave it up 2 weeks?
Sure, why not?
All right, so you'll
People
have.
don't vote too much.
Unless Twitter restricts on how long I can leave this up and how many choices, these will be your 6 choices. I'll leave it up for 2 weeks, so 2 weeks from this Thursday. What's today's date, Andrew? May 25th. And then,
you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, iPhone. Thank you, Hal, for telling me that information. And then we will come back to it after a review of Logan. Are you going to rewatch Logan? I didn't bring my DVD.
Well, then probably not.
But I'm going to give you my digital code.
Oh, Lord, all right.
Will you watch it?
I don't mind putting Logan in my... I still haven't...
I gave him my Prometheus digital code to watch so we could review that one day on this podcast. Tell him why you don't want to use the free code.
I don't want it to be in my virtual library forever.
Okay.
I guess it doesn't matter. It's not like it's taking up shelf space. I should just do it and rewatch it.
See, I think
movie.
I'm kind of glad we're doing Logan because one, it'll be probably the first 4K Blu-ray I watched, so I can talk about the player.
Yeah.
And 2, we missed it when it first came out. That was a big film of this year, which some people may think is overrated, which is something we can discuss next week.
Jerry, maybe?
Yeah. I don't even know if Jerry saw Logan.
I'm sure he saw Logan. Did I see Logan with Jerry? I saw it with a couple people. I saw it with my dad and maybe my sister. I don't recall. I never recall who I see movies with.
And it gives us time to prepare the 70s list because that's going to be a beast. And a lot of work when show notes usually take me 10 minutes to type up.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent probably a good 30 to 45 minutes trying to.
If you've been paying attention to the website, the show notes are already typed up.
Yeah.
Some of them.
That was the show description, which we apologize got accidentally published.
Sure.
I just wanted to close the show with some housekeeping. And we're going to wrap up here. But the Epic Review really, I think, is looking the best it has in probably 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Probably from when Jerry and Gina and I were really pushing things on the site. You're writing. We're doing a lot of podcasts. I'm doing reviews and writing. As far as the news, I debated with that. I want to keep doing a commentary on the news. Here's what I'm going to say, guys. And we're getting thousands of hits. So this isn't like nobody's reading it. We wish you commented more. But I'm going to do the best I can. And the stuff that's really important to me, you'll see articles for. The stuff that's really important to Andrew, like Red Dead Redemption 2 and Pokemon 2. Sorry, Pokemon Go. Right. You'll see articles about. But that's the place to go. We have a new podcast logo. Yeah. I think it looks really good in the App Store. So I'm excited to actually have something that's not clip art as our logo and it incorporates comics and film. Yeah. So check out that logo at the site when you subscribe to us on iTunes.
Site's very interesting.
It is very interesting. I like the Panther blue on there now, how we actually can differentiate links.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, I know you got a board game night tonight, so let's wrap this up. Andrew Stokes, where can people find more of you?
You can find me. I write on the Epic Review at thepicreview.com, apparently. Who knew? But I'm writing a few articles over there. And you can follow me on Twitter at aka Andrew Stokes, where I'll retweet Brad's tweet and you can vote on the poll, and maybe I'll tweet things.
Please vote on the poll. I mean, we had nearly 100 votes on a 2-day poll for which was better, Alien versus Aliens, on Confirmed Epic Podcast number 61. So follow me on Twitter at TheRealBradBell, REEL Brad Bell. That's where you can find that poll. You'll have 2 weeks to vote since we're going to review Logan next week. Also find me at thegww.com and thepicreview.com. Find our TMNT Rewatch podcast, which we will be finishing the first season within the next 2 weeks, at technodrometales.com. And from the Hollywood foothills of North Carolina, once again, we are out.
This has been a production of the GWW Radio Network. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Also, check out Geeks Worldwide at thegww.com for all the latest news, reviews, and opinions on video games, comics, movies, TV, cosplay, and more. Geeks, assemble!